see, Tanique and I are in the early stages of a life transition. That's the stage of launching kids. And I was commenting to a member of our church recently how I have enjoyed this new activity that is quickly approaching my list of favorites. And that is to sit in front of a fire some evenings and sip tea and talk to my wife. You see, we've been married for 21 years, but we haven't gotten to do as much of that as I had hoped. Because we had kids right away. And it seemed that one of us was always in school. We got married, I went to seminary. I got out of seminary, she started her bachelor's. She got done with her bachelor's, she started her master's. And 1 month before she graduated with her master's, I started my doctoral program. But here lately, and of course when the kids were younger, you parents know how it is, right? There was always supper and cleanup and homework and laundry. And then, of course, I was always rushing out the door for an evening meeting or church visitation. But here lately, our evenings have been a little lighter as the kids are older and becoming more self-sufficient. And occasionally, we actually have these nights where I don't have a meeting. And we get to go quiet, and we brew tea, and we sit and talk. And the first couple times we did it, I was like, I'm a guy, so we have to produce things, right? We're productive. Okay, we're going to talk. What are we talking about? What's the agenda? What's the outcome? What decision needs to be made? My wife's like, Bob, you need to chill out. Chill out. She's like, let me tell you about my day. I'm like, why? What happened? What happened? Someone mean to you at work today? Let's just talk. And so my wife has been educating me in this new art of just talking. And I'm really enjoying it. And we sit and we talk about nothing. We just chit-chat. We just share. And about a month ago, we were doing this one night, and I said to her, you know what? This right here, this moment, right now, this moment is the very, very best part of my day. And she said, what do you mean? I said, me being here with you and just talking and just sharing our hearts and not having to attack a to-do list or some big list of agenda items. Just sharing our hearts and being together. And I didn't know it, but I scored big points that night. Apparently women love that stuff. I think a guy would know that by this stage of the game. It's important to just talk. It is important to share. It is important to listen. Because when we do that, this interaction builds relationship. And it develops a sense of closeness, and it fosters intimacy. Here's what Ellen White says about prayer in the little book, Steps to Christ. She says, prayer is the opening of the heart to God as to a friend. Not that it is necessary to make known to God what we are, but in order for us to be able to receive Him. Prayer does not bring God down to us, but it brings us up to Him. In the recent minutes of this worship service, we have focused on the first two elements of the Acts model of prayer, adoration and confession. When we adore Christ, we open the heart as to a friend. Not as a way of revealing who we are, but as a way of uncovering who He is. The focus of the prayer is not on me, or on what I want to say, or on me informing God of anything. But the focus of the prayer is on God. We adore Him. We pay attention to Him. We celebrate Him. We contemplate His goodness and His mercy toward us. We remember His marvelous deeds and the tremendous grace that He imparts into our lives. We know that prayer is important because Jesus Himself often spent whole nights in Gethsemane. He prayed at the cross. Listen to what Paul says, Hebrews 5:7. Speaking of Jesus, he says that during the days of Jesus' life on earth, He offered up prayers and petitions with loud cries and with tears to to the one who could save him from death. For some reason, when you think of Jesus sometime in his prayer, you almost think of Jesus praying these King James prayers, right? Really spiritual sounding, be it thou, Lord, kind of stuff. Paul says that when he prayed with loud cries, and he prayed with tears. Last Saturday afternoon, I was involved in a significant prayer gathering for healing, and there were tears. There were loud cries. There were these anguishing prayers that were prayed as people just gathered their hearts and just emptied themselves in prayer and petitioned to God. That's the way that Jesus would often pray. If Jesus needed that kind of prayer, if Jesus needed to spend that kind of time in prayer, then how much more do you and I need prayer? And that's why I appreciate those who put this prayer vigil together for us this weekend. And I hope that you will choose to attend the afternoon sessions, the children's session at 2 o'clock, the prayer walk in the afternoon, the Vespers, which will start around 5, conclude about 6 p.m. tonight. Because we need to be a praying church. And I want us to move into our third section of today's service. We're working our way through the Acts model of prayer. This third section, beginning with Thanksgiving. It is truly beautiful to watch you pray. I want to tell you a story. It happened in this church a couple of years ago. We were involved in the major evangelistic campaign. Dr. Ron Jose was here from the North American Division. It was our first event in our new building next door, the Ark. We were about a third of the way into this 4 or 5 week campaign. And I noticed that night that someone new came to the meetings, a new visitor came to the meetings that I had never seen before, and I kind of wanted to make my way over there and say hello. And so after the meeting, I sort of started to negotiate my way through the crowd over to say hello to this visitor. And as I did that, I noticed that the visitor was also on his way to me. And I sensed that someone had pointed me out as the pastor or whatever, and I sensed that he wanted to talk to me. So we finally got up and got to meet each other and shake hands, and this was his opening line. Pastor, it's my first night here, but I'm ready to join the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I would like for you to baptize me. And he said it with a certain urgency. And I kind of got the feeling he meant right now. As in now. As in, don't y'all have a tank around here? Is there water in it? Because I'm ready. I mean, really, I'm not exaggerating. And because this is an evangelistic series, this is a good thing, right? And we're happy when this happens. But, I'm kind of wanting to slow this guy down a little bit. And I said, well, we got this thing that we used to take people through. And we'll take you through a time of study. And we want to make sure that you understand the organization you're part of. And he says, oh, I don't need that. I know about all that. And I'm like, no, really. We usually take people through a time of study. He says, no, you don't understand. I've been watching 3ABN for the last 3 years. I watched Doug Batchelor all the time, and I know all about you Adventists. And then he started to talk about Adventism. And I figured out that he knew more about Adventism than a lot of Adventists that I know. I thought, well, this guy, he's just a hot interest. It's what we call an A interest. He's ready to go. You know who I'm talking about, right? Huh? Am I talking about Walter right back there? Give me a witness, Walter, all right? Walter, the Tennessee with his whole family, glad you guys come to church here. Go ahead and do it. So over the next couple of weeks, I get to know Walter, and I introduce him to Ron. Every night we have this nice conversation. One night, Walter and Ron are talking. Ron's the speaker for the series, and they're talking. And Walter's talking about Doug Batchelor, and he's talking about Amazing Facts. He's talking about how he's just really a fan of Doug Batchelor, and he's been following Amazing Facts for these 3 years. He's really already been converted to Adventism. He's just waiting on the pastor to get the baptismal tank full so he can baptize me so I can be an official member around here, And as they're talking, Ron does the oddest thing. Ron kind of pulls out his phone, and he starts fidgeting with his phone. And it's kind of rude, right? And Walter's talking, and Ron's playing with his phone. I'm kind of like, dude, Ron, come on. You're teaching the course on evangelism. You're supposed to be able to... And Ron's just talking with his phone. I'm like, dude, And finally, he presses send, and he pulls his phone up to his ear. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to jump in here and rescue this thing. I'm going to slap this guy after the meeting. We're going to get together and talk. Well, you can't... And he makes a phone call while Walter's trying to talk to him. And this is what he says when the guy picks up. He's like, Hey, Doug, how you doing? Yeah, Ron Cluzet. Listen, I got my friend Walter here, and he likes you a lot, and he's been watching 3ABN, and he's been watching you on Amazing Facts, and we're going to baptize him at the end of our series, and it's really because of you and Amazing Facts. I just thought you should say hi to Walter. Yeah, here he is, right here. Here you go, Walter. And he hands Walter the phone. And I like Walter, but I got to tell you what he did. He kind of grabbed the phone, and he looked at it. And it was kind of like, he didn't really know. Are you kidding me? This is my man, right? I'm a faithful follower. I'm a disciple. And so he's kind of like, Doug? It's you. It's really you. I recognize you. And they had this wonderful 5-minute conversation. When they got off the phone, and by the way, it was a miracle conversation. No, Doug's never next to his phone. He had just left the studio and he was on his way home. He said, this is the only couple of minutes all day long in which I actually would have answered that phone and been close to that phone. He said, it's just amazing that we got together. We knew it was a God thing. When Walter got off the phone, he was on cloud 9. Cloud 9. And I was thinking, how weird is that? Because who has Doug Batchelor's phone number? Come on. I didn't know Ron had Doug Batchelor's personal cell phone number. Who gets to have Doug Batchelor's personal cell phone number? The guy is like a celebrity. And this was such a God moment that in that moment, they had that conversation. Ron has the number. Ron makes the call. Doug actually picks up. I mean, you understand, like, the stars and the planets all have to align perfectly for this little God miracle. And it was just such an encouragement to Walter and to his family. It was such an encouragement to them. Amen. Do you know that you have God's cell phone number? And do you know that God doesn't have voicemail because God doesn't need it? Because when you call, He will answer. Amen. You can call 24/7, 365. Any time of the night or the day. When you call, God answers on the first ring. It never goes to voicemail. You never hear that He's not available. You never hear, please leave your name and number and I'll call you. You never hear that. Rain, hey, how you doing? I'm here. You have God's cell phone number. And He always, always, always answers when you call. We're going to move into the fourth part of our service today, the fourth and final part, the part that we call supplication. Supplication is the part where we bring our requests to God. And I want you to think of it as though you have God's cell phone number. And He is sitting there with that phone in His hand, waiting for you to call. Because He wants to talk to you. Listen to what some of the final verses of Psalm 91 say. Verses 14 through 16. In these verses, God is the one speaking. And this is what He says. Because He has set His love upon me. God is speaking. You're the He. So, because you have set your love upon Him, God says, therefore will I deliver Him. I will set Him on high, because He has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer Him. I will be with Him in trouble. I will deliver Him and honor Him. With long life will I satisfy Him and show Him my salvation. Do you want to be delivered by Him and honored by Him today? Do you want to be satisfied by Him? And do you want His salvation? Then you can ask for that now. Because He has promised that when you call, He will answer. We're going to move now into the fourth and final part of today's worship service. The part where we bring our request to God. This is called supplication. wondrous God, watch after us as we are apart from each other. We pray it in the name of our Jesus.